Welcome to the Faithful Agent Podcast, where we help Christian real estate agents grow their business without losing their soul. If you're ready to sell more homes, build systems that create freedom, and finally reclaim your life, you're in the right place. Each week, you'll get proven strategies, real conversations, and biblical wisdom to help you succeed in business while staying faithful to your calling in Christ. I'm your host, Garrett Maroon. Let's get started. What is up, faithful agents? Welcome back to another episode of the Faithful Agent Podcast. We have a super impressive guest for you today. I'm excited for you to get to know Taley Hunt and hear a little bit of her story. But before we do, Taley, as I was telling you at the beginning, let's do a Christian dad joke. Now, I don't know if this is funny, but okay, so I'll just say this one. What was Noah's greatest worry on the ark? This is the pair of termites. The pair of termites, Taley. That's not
valid.
Even funny. You're like, that's okay. Well,
valid.
let's. But you're right. That's more like not a joke. It's more a statement.
Yeah.
And so, all right. Then let me ask you this: who is the most flagrant lawbreaker in the Bible?
I don't know that either.
Moses. He broke all 10 commandments at once. You got to know a little biblical history.
So
That's
funny.
fantastic. That's Taley. Like most guests, you're like, why am I here? It's okay. You're here now. We're doing it. I'm glad that you're here. Taley Hunt, you are you built an incredibly impressive business. You've done it as a mom and a wife, and that is awesome. But I want to dive right in, right? So your story started in 2020. You get stationed because your husband gets stationed in Columbia, South Carolina. You're not an agent. You decide to become an agent. Pick us up from there.
Yeah. So I didn't know what I was going to do. It was during the pandemic, and I used to work in higher education. Because of the pandemic, there were a lot of budget freezes in higher education and government jobs in general, right? And so I asked around, what should I do? What do you guys think? And someone says real estate. And so I decided to get into it without really knowing anything about the business. I never really known a real estate agent and shadowed one. So I really didn't have any clue. So I am taking the class online. I get halted with, you got to wait 2, 3, 4 weeks to be able to test because of the pandemic. So finally, it's time for me to take the test. And for some reason, I thought it would be smart to, before I go to take the test, to take a pregnancy test. And I did, and I found out that I was pregnant.
Awesome.
Right before I left our 3rd-story crappy apartment that we were living in. And then I went to go take the exam, and I was like, oh, life is so totally different now. We have got another reason to be super successful with this. So I found out that I was pregnant that day. I went to take my real estate exam. I passed, and then I hit the ground running.
It's awesome. Okay, so take me back. Now, what's interesting, and I didn't know this about your background, I was in higher education too before I moved into real estate. Now, it wasn't COVID. I've been in real estate since 2014, but it was because I was making $42,000 maybe a year, and my wife and I are like, well, we want to have kids one day. Can't do that, making $42,000 a year. And so sounds like maybe like you, I quit and just jumped full in, right? Now it took me 5.5 months to make a sale, and then thankfully it built from there. But I was worried. There was a lot of challenges that come from being a brand new agent. That wasn't even that long ago for you. Now I know you've had incredible success. We'll talk about that, but take me back to that beginning stage, right? You're pregnant. You find out the day of the test. You're brand new into real estate. Now, you happen to enter a market that was chaos, right? In a potential good way, depending on who the agent was. And so you walk into that, your business starts to grow. But what were you feeling as you were going into the industry? Did it take a little while? Did it happen right away? Like, walk me back to the beginning of that.
Yeah, so I started working in October 2020, and I closed my first deal in February 2021, and then I had my baby in March. And
That's
after
awesome.
that, it was wild.
Yeah.
And then I never took any sort of maternity leave. I never took any time off. I mean, I was showing houses the day that I was induced, and I was going to go look at property on the way to my daughter's first doctor's appointment. So I literally never stopped. And it was hard. It was very scary. There was this immense amount of like self-put pressure to be successful and figure it out. And I just didn't want to fail. And when I started to see the momentum, I was terrified that it would stop. And so I just never quit. So I had a lot of postpartum anxiety. I was very sad, but on the front end, my real estate business was doing really well. I sold 28 homes that year. I wasn't paying for any leads. So it was just kind of happening. People were calling me. I was making connections and it was working. All of this hard work was paying off. But, you know, silently behind closed doors, it was kind of miserable because I didn't get to enjoy that first year of motherhood. And then my business snowballed. So I sold 86 houses the next year. And it was a chaotic and crazy time in the market, but it was all I knew. So I felt like a pilot who was trying to fly the plane and get my license at the same time. That's what it really felt like.
Yeah, for sure. Which so much of business building is, right? It's like, well, the planes are in the air. I need to add these things, right? But definitely in my lead agent, Jesse, I talk about a lot on the show, but he came in during COVID, now April of 2020, and he didn't know anything but the crazy amount of hustle that was required. And so I can imagine being a new mom in a market where it, you know, now it's a skill market, but then it was all speed. I mean, it was still skill, but it was so much speed, right? So you are in this place, if you want to make this work, well, you got to get out there and be available as often as you can while you're trying to be a mom to, this is your oldest, right? This is your first.
Yeah, this is my 4.5-year-old. I'm pregnant with my second due in May.
Amazing. So, that's awesome.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah. So it was, it was really hard. And I didn't know anything about motherhood. I didn't know anything about real estate. I was doing them both for the first time at the same time. And it really was, you're right. It was a speed market. It was do not drop the ball because there's a million agents out there and they can just go find another one, which was the opposite about houses. So it was just a dynamic time for sure.
Well, was that already innate within you, that hustle, that drive? Was it like, you know, you said you found out you're pregnant, it's another reason to be successful. Was it, I have a baby now, right? Or I'm about to have a baby, I got to make this work, we got to figure this out. Like, what was it in you think that this drive came from to succeed at that level?
Yeah, I've always been a go-getter. I've always been a hustler. I had just come off of getting my master's in business, which I did in a year because I was like, I want to go ahead and get this over with, like fastest program, even if it's the hardest. And I was always that person. I grew up in a really small town in the poorest county in North Carolina. And I grew up with parents who really, really cared about me. And I never really went without, but we also, you know, weren't balling. And I always knew that I wanted to be successful, whatever that meant. You know, I never wanted to just be another person who didn't make it. And I thought that I would spend my life in higher education and specifically working with students and helping and building their lives. And so now I get to do kind of the same thing, right? Like helping other people, being involved in the community, being of service to others, but just in a different capacity.
That's cool. Yeah. Okay. So you have your daughter, well, you get your first sale and then you have your daughter a month later and you're out there next day, basically out there still showing property and doing all of those things. I mean, you're a solo agent at this point, right? You don't have support or anything. You're just figuring it out. Yeah. So looking back, and you said what was hard, this is where I think agents get it, right, to a degree, but the consumer doesn't. They don't recognize how difficult it is behind the scenes to actually figure out, you're selling a lot of homes, you got a brand new baby, and you're married, you've got a lot of balls that you're trying to keep in the air, right? That's really difficult, especially again in a market where it was, there's going to be 85 offers today, and so you got to get yours in and you're going to swing and miss constantly, right? So on 28 sales, you probably, you know, wrote, who knows, 100 offers, who knows how many it was, unless you're the listing agent. That was good times to be a listing agent, right? But you're brand new, you're in this, you're running around with your daughter. Were there times where you were pausing and just saying, what am I doing? I need to slow down. What do I do? Like, what was going on emotionally, mentally in that year? Or were you just head down, like, this is what it takes, I got to do it? Walk me through what you were feeling in that year.
Yeah, so I sold 28 houses and only one was a listing. So I was
Wow.
working with buyers and
Ooh,
I had
7
no
buyers.
childcare. Yeah,
Mm,
and I didn't have a babysitter, I didn't have nothing. So
right.
she was with me all the time.
Mm,
And I never took a minute to say, like, whoa, I need to slow down or this is crazy. What am I doing? It was actually the opposite. I
mm,
raised the bar next year. I was like, I want to sell 40 houses instead
mm,
of 28. I want to do more. And I think part of it comes from we were so broke when we
mm,
first started. I mean, I remember paying NAR dues and having like $1 in the bank. We were
mm,
so broke. And when I started to make money, the first thing we did was pay off debt. So we had my husband's paycheck every month, and that went towards bills and debt and all the things. So then when I started making money, we took that money, paid off all of our debt, and then we were very committed to how do we give our daughter the best life? And
mm,
so I kind of developed a complex looking back,
mm,
and it took me like 3.5, 4 years to figure this out. But I developed this complex of like, no amount of money is enough. Like, we have to
mm,
make as much money as possible
mm,
because if we don't, if the business slows down, if nobody ever hires me again, I never want to be broke again. I
mm,
never want to
mm,
be. So it took me a long time to like lift my head out of the mess and realize what kind of life do I really want and how do I build a life with vision and purpose instead of just straight blind hustle. It took a
mm,
while.
mm. Yeah, you're constantly afraid it's just going to all go away, right? I mean, and it's interesting because it built so quickly. And I want you to tell us the numbers, right? But it built so quickly that it could feel like, whoa, where was the foundation? Like, now is this just going to go away, right? The market was crazy, and now what happens? And well, so I have a couple questions there, but just tell us. So you did 28 your first year. How many the
Yeah.
second year?
I did 28 year one, 86 in year two, and then
Wow.
145 in year three. And then I started a small team. I hired a buyer's agent, and it felt like luck for a long time. I just
Mm,
thought, I'm the new girl in town. I have a baby. I'm balancing it all. I'm not paying for leads, so I'm not cold calling. I'm not doing expires. There's no like numerical, I do this, and then I get this many leads, and then I close this
mm,
many deals. It was
yeah,
all organic. So it felt like a lot of luck. It never felt like
mm,
strategy until I realized, like, no, you are working really hard. It may not be in like the traditional way that a lot of real estate gurus teach, but it is hard work and it is strategy, whether I realize it or not. So it
mm.
was
Which,
fast and
yeah.
crazy.
No, absolutely it is. So, okay, so you did like 140 by yourself, right? You're just
Yeah. So
swinging
I,
houses everywhere. Yeah.
correct. Yeah. So I had in year two, so at the end of my first year when I like had wrapped everything up, I remember being miserable and exhausted. And I said, I've
Um,
got to get some sort of help. So I
mm,
hired a pay per file transaction coordinator,
awesome.
and then I hired like somebody around the office just to help run. Like, just to like, can you go here
Smart.
and do this? And I
Lockbox,
also
whatever. Yeah.
hired a babysitter, and I had six
Mm,
hours a day to be able to lead generate. So when I
amazing.
did that, I realized that I was spending more time running around showing houses than I was doing the 20% that I needed to do. So
Mm,
eventually I hired a showing partner to help with showings.
mm,
And then after I did that model for a long time, me, a TC, a showing partner, I decided to expand because I knew that I never wanted to like live a life where I couldn't go on vacation ever. And if I
mm.
did, I was just working the entire time, which is what I was doing. And I wanted to stop doing that.
Mm, good for you. Yeah, it's amazing. Like you said, you're like, where's my strategy? Whatever. If you're having these thoughts of what's my top 20%, now that might not have been the language that you maybe had. Maybe you have it now, right? But you were doing like innately understanding, you had your
Mhm.
MBA, but innately understanding what does it take to actually build a business. I was actually on a call earlier today with someone who really is in that process of how do they go from being an agent to a business owner, right? And that's a shift. Those are new skills. Those are new thought process, right? Business owners understand numbers, they understand leverage. It's not all about them, right? They understand the dollar per hour, the top 20%, right? So they can actually focus on what matters to build their business. So and we're going to come back to that. What were you doing though? You said, it wasn't what all these top trainers were teaching and all the things they were saying. What were you doing to, besides hustle, right, to actually generate that kind of business, right? There was probably some strategy, whether you're aware of it or not,
Yeah,
maybe innately who you are, right? But
sure.
what were you doing? Hey, faithful agents, pause what you're doing, go to faithfulagent.com or click it in the show notes, and it's going to take you directly to my Faithful Agent ebook. 10 chapters packed with value, nice and short. It's going to give you actionable steps after each chapter. I hope this is a blessing to you. I wrote it for you. Pause what you're doing. Go grab the ebook right now. It's going to be a blessing in your business. Now back to the episode.
Yeah, so my first year in the business, I can trace back almost every deal that I did to agent referrals from social media. So my first lead ever came from when I first started. I was just trying to learn as much as I could and figure things out. And so I stumbled upon Facebook groups that have real estate agents in them where they say, hey, I'm in Florida and I need an agent in North Dakota. Do you know anybody? And I was like, I don't know people locally, but I can form relationships online with other agents in the business and network. And so that's what I did. I joined every Facebook group I could. I commented on posts all the time. I would search past posts with my area and I would reach out to agents who had previously sent referrals. But one day I found an agent who said, hey, I'm looking for an agent in Columbia, South Carolina. And I'd never done a deal before, but I reached out to them and said, I would love to help. This is my brokerage. My husband's in the military because it was a military move. Like, I would be happy to help. So they sent me that referral. And then that client sent me their friend, and the pattern just kept repeating itself. So I would have clients who would send me their friends, agents who would send me clients, and so on and so forth. I was also showing up a lot on social media, and I would get really involved in local Facebook groups too, you know, just giving advice, answering questions when people would ask them. And if somebody asked a real estate question and I had talked about it previously on my Instagram, I would link my Instagram posts and say, I actually just answered this on my Instagram. You can follow me here. So it would redirect traffic back. So a lot of social media, a lot of clients who were coming to me via social media in some way, whether it was like a Facebook group or an agent referral, people were referring me to other people. So I like to think of my business as relationships, reputation, and referrals. And right now, still to this day, our top 3 lead sources are sphere of influence or database, agent referrals, and social media.
That's awesome. Okay. So yeah, now you have agents, right? You're still a small but really powerful team. Yeah. How are you teaching them to build their business, right? What is the actual strategy and approach for somebody now coming into your world?
Yeah. So my vision for our real estate team next year is all about community. And what I am telling my agents is that we are so inundated with technology and AI, but what it will never replace is human connection. So how do you find your people and your purpose and connect community that way? Is it social media content that attaches you to the people who are like you and who are your ideal client that you would want to work with? Is it creating a Facebook group and finding people that have a similar mission or purpose as you do and connecting with people? Is it networking with other business owners? What does that look like? And so we are all about organic stuff. I had an agent who was on my team. She just moved away to another state. And I remember sitting down with her and she was like, I suck. I can't find any leads. I don't know what to do. And she was a young 23-year-old Hispanic girl in our market who was fluent in Spanish. And I said, you have the world at your fingertips. Create community with people who are just like you. Her mission and what she was really passionate about was helping immigrants find housing. And so I said, how do you get around more people who need what you're passionate about delivering? And so she created a Facebook group. I think it has like 7,000 people in it now. And referrals were just flowing in from her because she was the go-to person. She was having events with them, inviting them to open houses, sharing stories with what she was seeing in the market. And she just became the leader there. And that is exactly what we've done. You know, we host client events every single year. We do a lot of giveaways. We stay in touch and stay in front of people all the time because we believe that community and connection trumps everything else.
That's good. Yeah, which I agree 1,000%, especially like you made mention. You know, it's funny if anybody, and he'll be on the show soon, but if anybody knows the name Jason Pantana, he's an AI expert and trainer and, you know, all around the world with Tom Ferry community. He loves Jesus, by the way. He's an awesome, awesome guy. But I was just having a conversation with him and same thing. It's like, yeah, AI AI is awesome, but you still need that belly to belly actual community, right? The Lord created us to actually be in fellowship with one another. AI cannot replace that, right? It's never, AI, first of all, doesn't have wisdom. It has information, as knowledge. If you're using like ChatGPT, those kinds of things. But the reality is, I actually think, and I'd be curious your opinion, I actually think with the rise of AI, it's now more important for us to be in community and have connection, because now I don't even know what's real. But if you're sitting down in front of me and I see you face to face and we actually have a relationship, we're laughing together or whatever doing together, now I'm like, that person's actually real. They actually showed up. They couldn't have AI generated this, right? Like, this is them. Do you think we're moving in a world where that's actually going to be more important than it has been in the past?
Yeah, because I think that constant onlineness and always everything being virtual and being able to Google anything or chat GPT anything creates a sense of loneliness for people. I think it allows people to be more by themselves. And I do believe that human connection is so important, because when you're going through hard times, or when you have a stressful situation, or something is happening in your life and you need help, you need people. You have to have a village, right? And sometimes that means being uncomfortable yourself. Sometimes that means being the villager who puts everybody together. And that was always my methodology. Like, how do I create relationships and community within the sphere that I'm building organically from the bottom up? And I think too that you can Google and chat GPT anything, but there's something about being able to call somebody that you trust is going to have the answer and they help you out. I mean, there's just nothing like it, you know? And I think that when clients have you as their person that they can call no matter what and say like, hey, I'm going through the situation, or my sister is going through the situation. Can you give us any advice? And you show up and you're the person that does that for them. It goes above and beyond what a computer ever could.
Yeah, that's good. I love that you use that word trust, right? Will ChatGPT ever be to the point where it gains and garners the trust of the user? Not now, right? I mean, maybe there's a small subset of people, but for the majority, it's using it as an assistant. It's using it as Google. It's using whatever it is, but it's not that we're going to go straight up trust. Maybe it's going to give us some information. Yeah, I recently had a conversation with some past clients who they called me and they were pregnant with their second kid, actually. And they're like, we bought our house 2.5 years ago. It's fine, but we realize it's going to be smaller than we want it to be now with the second kid. But we're in this spot. Like, can you help us through this? And they actually said, like, we've asked ChatGPT, we've done this stuff, but like, we just need your advice and opinion, especially believer to believer. These are believers. And it's like, we just need your opinion and advice. First thing we did was pray, and then we had a conversation about it. Right. And then they called up a week or so later, like, all right, let's do this. Now they're under contract and all the things. Right. But ChatGPT alone, that piece alone is not enough, right? Information, but they really need the emotional intelligence and connection with somebody who gets what's going on in their life at a deeper level and can walk alongside of them, right? The shoulder to shoulder still matters in walking alongside with somebody, right? So I love what you're talking about. Now, going back real quick. So you have this agent on your team who's Hispanic, who can speak, or is passionate about helping immigrants find housing. When you are teaching agents and you're saying, here's how I want you to build community connection, are you encouraging them to first figure out, like, how do you niche down to like, what are the uniqueness about you? Yeah. How would you walk somebody through that if they say, great idea. Am I doing this local? Am I doing this global? Am I niching down? How far is too far? Yeah. Walk me through that.
Yeah, so I think it's much easier to appeal to people who are similar to you in some way. So I always ask them, what are your favorite types of people to be in relationship with, especially if it's a new agent, because they don't have deals and experience to fall back on. Like, if it's an agent who has already done business, I have them look at their track record. What kind of deals were the best deals? Who were the best people that you worked with? If you had an ideal client, like, you could pull somebody out of your database and you're like, I want to have a transaction like this every single time because I love this type of person. Who is that, and what do they need from you? And I think that's the best way to do it. So if it's a mom, how are you creating community with other moms? If you relocated to the area and you're really passionate about helping people do that, maybe you live in a city that you've been in forever, but you absolutely love it and you feel like it's perfect for this type of person. And you want to help other people be able to see that and make their process smoother. Maybe you're working with relocation people. Maybe you are someone who is real deep into your church and you want to work with other church-minded people. Maybe you're a new dad and you want to help other people who are new dads that are going through similar struggles as you and maybe need fellowship and community. How do you provide that to them? And so that's just one way of doing it, is using some sort of avenue to create community and get around people. Because if you can be around people and you can get to know them and get in relationship with them, you can have conversations, and conversations is what drives business.
Yeah, it's good. That's good. So shifting gears real quickly, but so now you got a 4.5-year-old, right? You got another one on the way, which is amazing. You're running a business at a high level. You've got 6 hours a day, I think you said, of babysitting, which is also helpful or amazing to get that help. How, though, are you trying to balance and manage, right? Balance can sometimes be a misnomer. My book's called The Balance Breakthrough, but I still believe it's a balancing act, right? Of sometimes you're out of balance on either way, right? Towards family or maybe towards work. But how are you navigating the challenge and the weight, honestly, of growing a business that is big and succeeding from a sales perspective, while also trying to make sure that you're successful right at home as a mom, as a wife? How are you handling that? And how are you navigating through the challenges that come with that?
Yeah, so for a long time, I was not handling it very well. I was very focused on work. Now, don't get me wrong, I wanted to be present and around for my daughter, but my husband ended up getting out of the Army and he ended up taking on a huge role at home. He worked alongside of me in the business.
Oh, wow.
But when my daughter got out of school and she didn't have childcare anymore, he was very much there a lot, doing morning drop off, doing pickup, doing all the things. And so that was super helpful, but it left me in a position to where I was just busy all the time. I didn't have boundaries in my business. There was no sense of balance. Unless I was like stopping for bedtime. And I slowly started to incorporate that to where it was like, I'm going to do everything I can to not work on the weekends if possible. But then I realized that I was equating a lot of self-worth to production, which is not what it needs to be, right? Like, you are so much more than your numbers. And I heard someone say, if nobody knew that you hit the goal that you made for yourself, would it matter as much? And that's when I realized that a lot of the goals that I had for myself weren't based on vision. They were just based on, I just want to do this. Like, it just sounds pretty cool to sell this many houses. I just want to be this person. And I felt too, like, after selling so many houses, stepping back would make me, like, I would feel like a loser or like a little bit illegitimate. And so, like I said, I put a lot of worth in that. And finally, I started coaching with my coach, and we really nailed down, well, what is the vision of your life and how do you want to operate? So I built in a way that allows me to impact the lives of the agents that are on my team and help them grow and reach their goals, as well as give time back to my family. So now all my appointments are typically cut off by 3. I don't work on the weekends, and I will probably be out of being the primary person in production on my team by the end of the year. So I've been able to build a business that gives me the life I want, rather than building a business that keeps me from it.
That's good. I love that. I love the natural transition, right? I think what's so fascinating about our industry is we all have fallen prey to that, right? Like, so much of the book that I read that's coming out is about that idea. I felt prey to that too, is the industry is going to tell you your worth and success definitions are how many deals, how much money, what was your GCI, what was your volume, right? How big is your team, whatever it is. And it's really easy to keep that as the only measurements, as opposed to recognizing, no, I'm the one that gets to define what success looks like in my life. And to your point, like, for me, that became take every 7th week off to be with my kids, have 2-day dates a month with my wife. Yeah, I have a financial business goal too, but if I can't achieve all of those things, then it's not winning. Right? You're actually winning at work, losing at life. I don't want to do that. And you were doing that. I was doing that, right? It's great. I'm showing up, and it's such a this idea, I think of, well, we can convince ourselves I'm doing this for my family, right? You have a new daughter at home. Your husband now had stepped out of the army. And so you're doing this for your family. And we convince ourselves that's true. It is true. However, what the family's also sitting there is like, yeah, but we really like for you to come home for dinner. We'd love to see you on the weekends. It's like, we also want you physically present. And I think we get so bought into this idea that no, provision is money. Provision is money. And like those become synonymous when they aren't. That's part of it. But when they aren't synonymous, right? And so we just get stuck in that grind and that habit of it's 10 o'clock. I'm into the phone. I got it. This is how I provide. Leave me alone. That mentality. And as you kind of unwound yourself from that and cycled back to say, this is not the life I intended. Now, praise God that in his kindness, we can build a business like you've been able to build. This industry is an insane opportunity for people, right? To build it and do it well, where you could actually step out of production and be done by 3 and make way more money than you would in a normal job, right? And have the freedom of flex. Like the Lord is so kind and granting us those opportunities. So we want to be excellent in that, right? But I love that the story for you is the hustle, the grind, but then the realization of, whoa, I know I did all these things, but that's not the definition of who I am and what my identity is supposed to be. Right. So now you're helping other agents, in particular, I think moms in real estate, do the same thing. Talk to me about that, right? Is it a coaching program? What is it? Like, explain that to me.
Yeah. So back in 2023, we actually just hit 2 years. I founded a program called MomWord, which stands for Moving Moms Forward in their business. And I really think about the way I coach as helping moms in real estate build big. And that big is defined on what you want. Big life, a big business. What does that mean? And I started it because I remember how lonely it was to start in the business and have a baby and not have support, and not have people, not have community, not have training, and be broke and not be able to afford it either. So MomWord is a monthly membership. It's $97 a month. And I teach in there every single week on Thursdays. All the calls are recorded. They're added to a vault and you can access at any time. So 2 years worth of trainings that we've done. But the cool thing is that we have almost 500 members now and they love each other. I just got a message yesterday from several agents who are all in the same area in Virginia. They met up for lunch and they got together with each other, and they were just saying, thank you so much. I would have never had these friendships if it wasn't for this program. And so I love that. I love being able to create spaces for people where not only are these women 2xing, 3xing their businesses, building teams, building boundaries, having a business that they love and growing in their confidence, but they're finding their people. And fellowship and community is so, so important. And it also gives me the ability to share the light and love of God with them too, which I love to be able to do. I've been reading a devotional, and anytime something kind of hits home with me, I'll share it in that group and show those people, here's what I'm reading this week, and they love that too. It's pretty cool.
That's super cool. I love that. That's awesome. Yeah, it's so good. One of the things I'll have to reach out and pick your brain at some point, but something that I felt the conviction on is what I didn't realize was happening was now I've just become so insulated with Christians, like my EXP organization, my nonprofit, this podcast, it's all for Christian agents specifically, which I love. My heart is for Christian agents, but what I want to be is hospitable. What I want agents to know is the table is bigger than just that, right? Yeah, we're coming from a biblical perspective. I can't help it. That's who I am, right? That's my identity in Christ. However, if you don't know the Lord, if you're not a Christian, if you don't go to church, whatever it is, you're still welcome here. We will come help equip you in your business, right? I'd love to be in community with you anyways. Yes, secretly, I want you to know Jesus, right? But I want to support and grow you in your business and care for you in that way. I love that for you, it was finding that moms in real estate and then allowing them to create and craft community, right? If anything, your main heart is how do you help people find community, right? That's so clearly what your heart and your business is built around. And it's just so powerful and effective. It was 20 years ago, right? When you and I weren't in real estate, right? It is still today and probably more important in the AI driven world where everyone's like, what's happening? It's going too fast. I need to be able to slow down and have conversation with people. So we'll get it in the show notes. But if someone's thinking, hey, I really want to be part of that, where would they go to do that? And how would they just connect with you in general if they want to reach out and have a conversation?
Yeah, so I'm kind of a little bit of everywhere. You can find me on Instagram at Real Estate Mom Coach, but I also have a website, taleyhunt.com. So you can DM me, find me on Facebook, Taley Anna Hunt, message me there, message me on my website, whatever,
Awesome.
what have you. And I'm happy to shed some light and insight into what we do and how we do it.
Amazing. So Taley Hunt, just for our audience. Yep. If you're driving or whatever, remember that Taley, and it'll be in the name of the podcast episode. But thank you so much for coming on. I mean, it is both refreshing to hear from an agent who has done such an incredible job on building a big business while being a mom, but also now having the realization that what was I throwing away in the meantime? And now how do I help other people not make that same mistake while building a big business? Because it's possible to do both, right? You don't have to trade your life for quote unquote real estate success. You can actually do both if you understand how to do it and do it in the right way. And just so appreciate that you're equipping moms to do that. So if you're a mom in the business and if reach out to her, if you're a dad, maybe one day we'll start something for us. We'll find that out. Dad word, I don't know. There's something weird about that. Maybe Taley can figure that out for us and we'll create something there. But thank you so much for coming on the show. Faithful agents, we love you. I'm praying for you and we'll see you next week. This episode is sponsored by the 210 Collective at EXP. If you desire to be equally yoked in business with your brothers and sisters in Christ all around the globe, if you desire to pursue excellence, serve faithfully, and glorify God in your business, then you should check out what is happening at the 210 Collective. Go to 210collective.com/podcast to learn more and schedule a call today.